It's probably a combination of both.
Of course it has.
France has a leading role in the question of fueling or not wars around the world. That's the first element. The second element is the European question, because as long as the EU is making so many free trade agreements all over the world, and especially with Africa, you will have also economic migration. So if you destroy local economy, people will be forced to move. But it's a forced exile. It's not, people are not, like contrary to what Marine Le Pen is saying, people are not happy to leave their country. So the best solution for everyone is to grant them their opportunity to stay in their country.
Christophe Brunel, tearing up trade deals, do you think that's part of the solution?
Yes, of course we have to work with our European partners, but may I ask my neighbor...
But tear up trade deals? Because that's what Sophie Rauser was just saying, that free trade deals help to fuel migration.
Yeah, but I just want to go back to the topic you asked before, and the consequence of and the way we have to deal with the euro, because I think it was your first question. May I ask my neighbor, if we leave the European Union and the euro, what will be the consequences for our economy and for our employment?
But what are the consequences now? To be honest, there is the highest level of unemployment we almost never had in France.
That doesn't mean it wouldn't be worse. It would be worse.
It is worse.
It would be worse.
It will be worse on July because the Greece treaty agreements are not made on the Greek debt, and obviously the negotiations will occur once the presidential elections are done. But there is a huge uncertainty as well on the eurozone.
Franck Marguin, rolling back the free trade agreements, going back to the franc and leaving the euro, is this going to help or hurt France?
I believe it's going to hurt, and there is no question of any doubt about that. The idea of having a strong Europe is probably a very good idea, but it doesn't. It's not enough. We need also to have more control on our own immigration policy, and I remind you that Mr. Fillon is proposing some quota, and I believe, the way you will first reassure your population, because our population is fearing, and that's something we have to understand and we have to listen.
But the
all these people who
hang on a second.
pretend there is no problem with immigration are just not listening what the French population is telling us. That's the first issue. The second issue is between European partners and our own policy, we could manage a better immigration policy. And
so there is a possibility of a better...
having the population we most need, or we would like to have, and not all the people who just want to come. And I think the debate about the wrong immigration or good immigration that my colleagues have started to have is not the question.
But Franck Marguin, isn't it a mischaracterization when you say that the floodgates have opened, since France said it would take, I believe something like 23,000
I'm not going
Syrian asylum seekers, and they have only taken a fraction of it so far.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about numbers, because if you hear these two people, they will battle against figures. I'm much more interested about what should we do.
But doesn't France have a responsibility?
We have, but what I'm trying to say that the responsibility of France is to work with its partners and to work with its own policy. That's what we have forgotten. We have only worked with our European partners, which is fine, and it's not done properly. And I think we have to help Europe, and especially the German, to help Europe to protect the frontiers better than we ever did. Second, we must reinvest the diplomacy in order to stop the wars which are attracting that much people on our ground. And third, probably to have effectively a quota policy, which means we could get more people we need and less people we don't need. But that's probably a combination of both.
One figure I want to talk about is you don't stop wars like that. One figure I want to talk about.
No, but the presidential election is a policy. No, people are voting for a policy, not for numbers.
Since we don't have one at a
time. First Boris Jamais, and then.
All right. So one figure Benoît Hamon put forward last night was to raise the development aid up to 0.7% of the GDP, and that will indeed help foreign countries in difficult situations and maybe solve some problems where they actually happen, and then maybe help down the line solve this issue. And then one other thing I want to talk about is you're talking about how some French people might be fearful of migrants who come to their country. So one way to address this issue is to educate them, is to make sure they know about their
Don't think French are not educated. You are so arrogant. There are French people are educated. Please, they are educated. Don't pretend you are going to educate people.
People are already educated, you know. They don't need François Benoît Hamon's
with what you did
to get educated.
Teachers' jobs. You're certainly not.
It's a joke.
One at a time, or else the viewer can't.
People are already educated. Okay, they don't need education from Benoît Hamon to have an opinion on immigration.
Talked about Benoît Hamon.
I was supposed to answer to my other colleague. How can you control immigration if you are still staying in the Schengen environment?
Mr. Fillon has proposed in his program to renegotiate Schengen.
Well, but we can't. You know, we need 28
but you
countries
say you
to
can't.
be.
I say we can. And why we are going to believe you?
But it's
no,
not,
we can renegotiate because everything in Europe could be renegotiated. And I think it's absolutely monstrosity. It's a real worry to pretend that we could not renegotiate.
One other aspect,
people against each other.
But François Hollande was elected by saying he was renegotiating with the European Union.
You just renegotiate them in order to make them working.
One other aspect of foreign policy that was brought up just in passing during that candidates debate was how to handle conflict much closer to home, that taking place in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, and how to handle Vladimir Putin. Christophe Brunel, how should France and Europe handle Putin?
Of course, we will have to speak with Vladimir Putin because he's the president of Russia. Saying this, we have to remind him that Russia has to be more attentive with the right of people, the right of minorities, and we have to be very careful with what he says with the different communities. And we have more distance with Vladimir Putin than some other candidates have.
We need to have more distance than with Putin than other candidates have.
Yeah, especially François Fillon. It was revealed earlier today that he got close to $50,000 for giving a conference to some people in Russia. So definitely confirming the strong ties that exist between him and Russia, as it's been documented several times.
Because you think that the
campaign.
policy of France depend on 30,000 conference, I think you are just, troublemaker. If you want to talk about corruption, maybe there is a subject which is going to be. But please don't tell us that Fillon wants to be closer to Russia because he does a conference. Come on.
At this point, there's like a dozen cases.
It's very clear that we need to rebalance the diplomacy and to be more independent than the American policy, and that's as clear as that. He has never said that we should be the best friend of the Russia.
He said that we should rebalance the borders of Ukraine, which is terribly dangerous.
True. If you look at history and if you look at thousand
history
of past history, Russia has been very close to France and always very close, and there is no reason why we shouldn't talk to the Russian, and there is no reason why we shouldn't, agree on
Russia just one of the divides on this in the home stretch of this French presidential election campaign. Ethics another. We'll be talking about it when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.